So 3 times a year the Ludum Dare event takes place. It's a programming competition or game making competition where you get 48 hours to make a game from scratch. This was the 3rd time I participated, and I decided also to shoot a little documentary about me coding my game. So this is the making of Pressure Run. The competition officially starts with the announcement of the theme. Since I'm located in Austria, this happens at 3 AM local time. Instead of staying up late like the last times, I slept till 8 AM to start well rested and with a +3 on intelligence and perception and whatnot. Well, at least that's what I thought. As I learned of the theme, it was a tie between 2 button controls and growing. I thought I could come up with something within the first half hour, but there was nothing. A quick note here, banging your head against the desk only feels like work, it doesn't get you anywhere. Yeah, coffee always helps, right? And I just decided I have to sit down and start to write down anything that comes to my mind. And would you know it, I came up with 6 or 7 ideas right away, before hitting rock bottom again. So I just started up FamiTracker and just toyed around with the sounds, hoping that something would come out of it I could use later. And this is when it struck me. I suddenly had a flash of nostalgia, and suddenly I knew exactly what I wanted to create. You see, we have this little video game history museum in our living room, and there I found my inspiration. It's the Game & Watch handheld from Nintendo from 1981, I think. It had pre-drawn LCD outlines of every possible sprite position in a single color, a lone piezo speaker, and most importantly just 2 buttons. I always wanted to make something like this myself, and for this weekend I decided yes, I would. My approach to making games is pretty random. I like to start with any kind of asset, and for me this time it meant recording the sounds of the game. I also took photos of the handheld I could use as reference, and also maybe a little bit as textures for the game. I didn't know whether I would use it or not, but it's always handy to have references, right? Back on the computer again, I started up Photoshop. Began blocking out the layout of the actual game and where the hazard should be, and I also made a little tile map for use in GameMaker so I could nudge the pieces around. I started with the character of Mr. Game & Watch, but it was my own interpretation, but I just love that character with the expressive body and the big nose so much, so it was really fun. As much as I enjoy working alone in my little cave, sometimes I need a break and be among other people without actually having to talk to them, because let's face it, social interactions are hard. But I knew this little place which has free power, free Wi-Fi, incredibly lovely baristas and great coffee. So I went to Starbucks. So there I began with the actual coding, setting up the game to be step-based, wiring in the sprites I had drawn, and doing some more programmer art on the hazards. This is the most stressful part, not knowing whether what you thought of could be possible within the 48 hours. But it looked like there was a chance I would be finishing on time this time. Since I had been working in a mall and it was a Saturday before Christmas and people were just crazy Christmas shopping, it got a little bit too intense for me. After also running into a problem with some data structure, I thought, yeah, screw it, I need another break. And I decided to visit the old town of Salzburg for a little bit of stress relief. Other people go out dancing and drinking and clubbing on a Saturday night. Yeah, you find me at the Café Wernbacher, which has a terrible coffee but a great club sandwich. There I kept working on my game, this time pen on paper, and came up with some new mechanics or ways to solve problems. When it was 7 PM, I was eager to get back to any kind of keyboard to hack in that new features that I had and new ideas that I wanted to try out. Still I had this problem with the data structure, which I didn't know how to go on about it when bam, suddenly I had it. Back home I was still riding the caffeine dragon, and so I started to implement all the features and ideas I had in the cafe. I like to work with some parts of the game that already look finished, and that's why I started retracing the LCD font of the original handheld to use as a font within GameMaker. I added the pressure gauge as a crucial gameplay element, because without it players could just hold down the two buttons without penalty. So this really adds a nice risk-reward element to the game. Yeah, talking about risk-rewards, I had risked my whole day in creating a game and it was 11:15, so I could reward myself with some sleep. I mean, I am old, so I need to go to bed early. But with still 27 something hours to go in the competition, I felt really good about myself, and yeah, that concluded day 1. I slept for 8 hours and had weird dreams of playing Worms against Warren Spector for some reason. So yeah, despite all that sleep I was a little bit groggy. Also had a severe lack of caffeine in my bloodstream, which I also needed to take care of before doing anything first. And nothing says more get back to coding than coffee from my favorite Pac-Man mug. So it was a really nice day outside, but I didn't care about that. With the sun in my back, I finally came around to add the other hazard type, the steam plumes emitting from the vents. As simple as it may sound, but it broke what I had so far, and yeah, my sloppy spaghetti coding up to that point really took its toll. And yeah, I desperately tried to just tie up all the loose ends I had. Fortunately, it was just a little oversight and I could fix it in like half an hour. And then the most favorite phase of any game development for me started, polishing the crap out of it. I redrew the hazards and the player interaction sprites, wired it all up in the game. I even made a little overlay with dust specks to look more authentic. And I redrew the background entirely to look like some Japanese simplified, 80s Game & Watch background. Until at some point I realized my art was getting worse and I didn't know what actually was the problem until I looked at the watch and it said, yeah, it's dinner time. Together with my lovely Connie, I jumped in the car and we were off to our favorite Turkish food shop to get some döner kebab takeaway. I wanted to head home right away, you know, don't waste any time, just keep coding. But you know, eating and coding don't go together too well, but eating and watching TV actually do pretty nicely line up, so I thought, yeah, one little show won't hurt. In the end it was a couple of little shows, but we still had some Christmas cookies too many.
The first day of December. I'm so excited I decided to announce that date to myself.
Returning to the code after a full meal was a bit strange. It was like I had been on vacation for 2 days. And I actually had to re-familiarize myself with my own code. But once I was there I made pretty solid progress and fixed those bugs quickly. And it was really fun also to create an authentic looking Game & Watch like border around the stage and cleaning up all the sprites for the final polished version. Of course the game is not complete without playtesting, and I really waited until the last minute for that. Luckily my lovely Connie was eager to push the 2 buttons herself and provide some feedback regarding the difficulty progression.
Das macht schon gut an.
Ja, das ist fies, weil
Das ist fies.
das eben ist auch noch die Developer-Version. Ich glaube, das ist auch nicht zu schaffen gerade.
So some final cleanups, a nice icon, and the last quick check later, I was finished. Even my internet provider was playing along this time, and both upload and submission at the Ludum Dare website worked flawlessly. Thank God. Without breaking much of a sweat and still with more than 3.5 hours to spare, I felt pretty good about myself. And you know what? The game even looks great on Android. So, looking back, certainly Pressure Run is nothing revolutionary in any way. Its gameplay is archaic, its sound is minimal, and it's interesting for 2 minutes at best. But, you know, I don't really care, because I'm proud of getting it done before the deadline, and, most importantly, I am happy to fulfill one of my childhood dreams I had as a kid in the 80s, making my very own Game & Watch game.